Good afternoon, everyone. How are we doing? Sorry for a late one today. Had a bit of stuff on, so we'll get right into it. Today we're continuing our regional anatomy series and focusing on the elbow again, but this time we are focusing on the ligaments and muscles. So let's get right into it. Now, as I zoom in on the elbow here, we've got this first layer. Now in this first layer, we see a couple of crucial ligaments form. So we've first got this big thing here. This is known as the synovial membrane, which creates the articular capsule for the humeral radial joint and the humeral ulnar joint. So if you remember from last lecture, this is the humeral radial joint and this is the humeral ulnar joint. Connects the humerus to the ulnar, connects the humerus to the radius. Now, a couple of other important ligaments include this one over here, which is most medially. This is known as the ulnar collateral ligament. This connects the epicondyle, the medial epicondyle of the humerus, to the ulnar. The ulnar collateral ligament makes up this whole bundle of ligaments right here that all originate from the epicondyle of the humerus, the medial epicondyle of the humerus, and all insert on the ulnar. Now, another main ligament that we need to know is this ligament here that stems between the radius and the ulnar. This here is known as the quadrate ligament. The purpose of the quadrate ligament is just to prevent excessive pronation and supination of the radius and the ulnar when you twist your wrist like this. The other important ligament are these two on the outside. Like the ulnar collateral ligament, the radial collateral ligaments also stabilize the elbow joint, specifically the humeral radial joint, and one of the ligaments inserts on the supinated crest of the ulnar, even though it's called the radial ligament. The reason why it's called the radial ligament is because it's on the radial side of the arm. So the lateral side of the arm is where the radius is, and that's where this ligament is. So it's called the radial collateral ligament. The other radial collateral ligament comes from the same place, so the lateral epicondyle, but inserts on the synovial capsule of the elbow joint, which is just above the radial head. Now, if we increase the layer by 1, we can see this other outer capsule form. This is known as the outer fibrous layer of the synovial capsule. So whenever we have synovial joints, we always have an inner synovial membrane and then an outer fibrous capsule that conceals all the synovial fluid in it and allows lubrication of the joints. Now, the final ligament of the elbow joint is known as this ligament here, which kind of looks like a ring if I position it this way, and it wraps around the radius. Whenever something is shaped like a ring, we call it annular. Annular means ring. And since this wraps around the radius, we call it the annular ligament of the radius. Additionally, there's one last ligament that we need to cover. Despite it not being around the elbow, it does play a major role in the stability of the ulnar and the radius during supination and pronation, as well as a crucial site of muscle attachment. And this is the interosseous membrane right here. The interosseous membrane, as you can see, is between the two radius and ulnar. It's a fibrous syndesmosis joint, and it's amphiarthrosis, which means it moves a little bit. It doesn't move a lot, but it moves a little bit. Specifically, it prevents oversupination and overpronation of the ulnar and the radius, and it ensures that it transfers energy from the radius to the ulnar. And that summarizes the ligaments of the elbow and the forearm. Next, we'll move on to the muscles. Now, the first muscle that appears on level 2 is this muscle here, and this is known as the supinator muscle. Now, if you remember what supination is, that's turning our palms up because we want the sup, right? So the supinator pulls on the radius, which is also connected to the ulnar. It pulls on the radius and supinates our arms like this, turns them over. And so this muscle specifically, if we go over to the back, it originates from the supinated crest of the ulnar, as well as the lateral epicondyle of the humerus, and it inserts on the medial aspect of the radius. Due to this insertion, it allows it to supinate the radius. Now, in our next level, you can see quite a few number of muscles that form. Now, these muscles down here, these we'll cover in later weeks. Because their function doesn't necessarily relate to the elbow joint, they're more related to the abduction, flexion, and extension of our digits. So we'll leave those. But what we do want are these muscles at the back. Now, this is called the triceps group of muscles, or the triceps brachii, because another name for the humerus is brachium, and so that's why we call them the triceps brachii. Now, the reason why we call them triceps is because they actually have 3 heads. Okay, From this posterior view, we can see this first tricep muscle, which is the lateral head of the triceps brachii. The second head is this head in here. Now, although from this angle it looks the most laterally, it actually originates most medially, right on the medial humerus. And that's called the medial head of the triceps brachii. And the final head of the triceps brachii is actually the long head, and it inserts, if we remember back to, I think, our first lecture, on the infraglenoid tubercle. Now, what do this group of muscles do? Now, they insert on the olecranon of the ulnar, as you can see here, just at the back, and they allow for extension of the forearm at the elbow joint. So, like this, extension of the forearm at the elbow joint. And they're very important in doing that procedure. Now, if we increase the muscle layers by one, we can see this other muscle that forms up here. This muscle here specifically is known as the coracobrachialis. The reason why is because it originates from the coracoid process, if we remember back to a couple of videos, and it inserts on the humerus, specifically on the medial third of the humerus. What does this help do? Well, it helps with medial rotation of the humerus, as well as adduction, so pulling our arms from this extended point in. Now, if we increase our muscular layer to the next one, we see a few more that form. Now, this one right here, this is known as the pronator teres. The role is essentially in its name. It pronates the radius and the ulnar at the elbow joint. So remember, supination is when I'm holding our arms like this. Pronation is twisting them over. What twists them over? That's the pronator teres that we've got right here. Now, the pronator teres, it originates from the supraepicondylar line, as well as the medial epicondyle, and it inserts on the radius, as you can see right there. The next muscles that we can also see is these two big ones at the front, and these are very popular, as you may know. These are the biceps. So when you go to the gym to train your arms, usually what people do is they train this muscle here, which is called the biceps brachii. Remember, because it attaches to the brachium. Brachium is the humerus. Now, like the triceps, the number of heads is in the name. So instead of having triheads, it's got biheads, or two heads. Okay, so we've got a long head, which is convenient enough the shorter looking muscle, and then we've got the short head, which is this muscle here. Now, the reason why this is called the long head is because it's got a tendon that goes all the way up and over the humeral head, and it inserts on the supraglenoid tubercle. You can't really see it right now, but it's somewhere over here, and it's just above the glenoid cavity. The other one, which is the short head of the biceps brachii, originates from the coracobrachialis. Both of them insert on the biceps brachii tendon, which inserts on the bicipital aponeurosis, which you can't see here, but it also inserts on the radial tuberosity. Now, the main function of these muscles is to flex the arms, so like this, like a bodybuilder, essentially. Now, another couple of muscles that we do need to know is, see this muscle that wraps around here, that is deep to the biceps brachii? That's called the brachialis. Now, the brachialis plays a similar role to the biceps brachii in flexion of the forearm at the elbow joint, and it inserts inside the humerus, so right here on the anterior face of it. But unlike the biceps brachii, it inserts on the ulnar, and it flexes the ulnar. Now, in increasing the layers one more time, we get the final muscle that we want to talk about today, and it's this muscle here that winds all the way around, just there. It originates in the distal third of the humerus, and it inserts in the distal end of the radius near the styloid process, down here. Now, we'll cover what the styloid process is in later videos. What this muscle is called, though, is the brachioradialis, because it originates from the brachium and inserts quite majorly on the radius, and hence its name is brachioradialis. Now, its function is a bit more specialized. When you are midway through pronation or supination, it's a bit harder to flex your arms using the traditional biceps brachii. And so what happens is this muscle is used to flex our arms mid-pronation or mid-supination. And that summarizes the muscles in the forearm surrounding the elbow. Be sure to tune in into our next video where we talk about the regional anatomy of the wrist and the hands, which gets a bit more complicated because, as you can tell, there are a lot of muscles and tendons. If I made any errors in this video, please don't hesitate to let me know in the comments. Other than that, leave a like and I will see you guys next video.